Avoidance is not only a core aspect of anxiety and anxiety disorders, but it's an essential component of all forms of psychopathology. And based on this, it makes sense to do a good assessment of avoidance and avoidance strategies in all patients that we see and encounter. In this role play, we will demonstrate how we can do the assessment of avoidance, and we will do this on the basis of 5 different parts of an interview. In the first part of the interview, we will simply focus on what the presenting problem is. Hi, Katarina. We spoke on the phone, and
Yes.
you mentioned that you were struggling with burnout at the moment. Can you say something more about it?
Yes, I don't know what I mentioned. My head is kind of, I don't remember. I'm having some concentration problems. My emotions are like a roller coaster, and I'm having a lot of stress at my work, and that makes that I'm working in the evenings, and that kind of makes my husband upset. And also, I'm sleeping bad the last weeks, so I'm having troubles getting into sleep. And when I'm finally asleep, I wake up again, and then I start kind of worrying if I've prepared well for the next day. So it seems as if just everything is way too much at the moment. I don't know why all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. So a lot is going on at the moment, and things are getting too much for you. You mentioned that you are working in the evenings. What is that?
Yes, this formerly I mainly worked for the main architect, but the last month there are more architects now in our firm, and there's much more stuff that needs to be done. So I'm doing all the technical drawings, and that takes quite a lot of time, and they ask me more and more, and I want to do my work well. So but it's just becoming so much so that it's not doable within the given time. So therefore I do it in the evenings.
In this first part of the interview, we will continue to elaborate to get a good view on what is going on. And so far I know that she's overwhelmed, that things are too much, that she's not getting enough sleep, that she worries a lot, that there are some issues from time to time with her husband, who thinks that she's working too much. So a lot is going on at this moment. And when we get a good picture of the presenting problem, we will immediately go over to the next part of the interview. And in this part, we will already be focusing on avoidance. Katarina, thanks for giving me a good insider's view on what is going on in your life, and I hear you being overwhelmed, and that your burnout also consists of being of the lack of energy, and that you cannot carry things anymore at this moment, that things are too much for you. We know from experience that when things are getting worse and people are not feeling well, often there is a component of avoidance that is at play. And avoidance, I'll have to explain. When we like things, we want to be with these things. We want to include them in our life. But if there are negative things, and these can be negative emotions, these can be negative bodily feelings, this can be negative memories, negative experiences, the negative things we want to keep out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And usually we want to have some balance in our life,
Yes.
including the
Yeah.
positive, and also making sure that there's not too much of a negative going on. But from time to time, well, the needle of the compass shifts a little bit towards more avoidance and less including the positive. I'm wondering now, for you, is there a topic, a central theme, something of which you say, I want to exclude this from my life. This is something I really hate. I don't think it's pleasant, and I'm doing efforts, to keep this out of my personal life.
I don't know. When you just said that, I thought I'm a person who really is, I don't know, who's really social and who really likes to be around people and have it nice and happy, that it's a nice atmosphere. And but that's more about the positive.
That's more about the positive. But sometimes an expression like that, like I want to have a good atmosphere, I want people around me to be happy, might also express that you don't want the opposites to be true.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm definitely not the person who's looking for conflict.
Okay.
So I don't know. I've never looked at it that way, that I'm trying to avoid that. But I don't. Yeah. If you put it like this, maybe you could say that I avoid it because I think it doesn't make any sense to seek for conflict.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that true in your relationship?
Yeah. Difficult question. Yeah, the last. It's the last weeks. It's difficult because I've told you I've been working so much, and my husband, he really doesn't like that. So he's been quite clear on that, that he doesn't appreciate that when I'm working until late and so forth. And he actually wants to go out to the theater, cinema, or to a restaurant, and just have some good times together. And
you say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by saying yes, you avoid a little bit of quarrel, you avoid a little bit of conflict. Would that be true?
Yes, because as I said, I'm kind of, I feel exhausted. I'm tired. So my need would actually be being at home on the sofa doing nothing, but a bit to please him. I go along with him going to a restaurant or to the movies or so.
Okay. In this second part of the interview, which we would elaborate some more, it became clear that Katarina is really afraid of conflicts, and not only in her personal life, as just discussed, but also at work. She would go at length to make sure that everybody is happy, but particularly that nobody will be angry with her, that there would be no conflict. And it also became clear that this is not something of the last couple of weeks or the last couple of months, but that it has been characterizing her actually throughout her life. So this main focus on making sure that nothing is going wrong, she expresses it like making sure that everybody's happy and that things are cozy. Actually, the reverse is true. She wants to avoid that things are unhappy and that there would be a large conflict or that people would be angry with her. If this is indeed the situation, which it is, it probably means that Katarina has developed throughout her life a large set of skills and techniques that help her to avoid conflicts and all kinds of other quarrels. In the third part of the interview, I want to get a better view on what these specific methods and techniques are. Katarina, it seems, based on your story, that you have become rather an expert in making sure that you're not surrounded by conflicts.
Yeah, you could say it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you had any conflicts over the last years? Many?
No.
No?
No.
Not one?
No, not so much that I can remember. Yeah, no.
Okay.
No.
If you haven't had any of these conflicts over the last couple of years, it really means that you have become an expert in avoiding them. It must mean that you hold on to a good set, a toolbox of strategies and techniques to make sure that you can avoid all these conflicts. What would such techniques be like? What do you do at home to ensure that you're not getting into conflict with your partners?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm not so conscious of any strategies, but yeah. When I think about it now, I guess what I often do is that I kind of give in to the other. As I said, like the other night, I felt more like staying at home, doing nothing, relaxing. But then my husband, he wanted to go out and so forth, and then I just kind of give in, go with it, and kind of ignore what I would have liked to do.
Okay. We have spent about 15-20 minutes in trying to elicit a whole set, and we have now a list of about 10 of different techniques and methods that she uses to avoid conflicts, both at home, so saying yes to a partner even though she is very tired and she would like to do something else just to rest, saying yes to her boss, and a whole range of other strategies that she uses to avoid conflicts. So we get a better view on both the active avoidance and the passive avoidance and all kinds of escape strategies that she's employing to make sure that conflict is not part of her life. And now that we know that she has this good toolbox of avoidance skills, we will probably be quite sure that there will also be negative consequences of the avoidance. Because if a person goes to such extents in avoiding, in this case, conflict, we know that avoidance comes with a cost. For instance, if a person would be socially anxious, and the best strategy for that person would be to make sure that he's not in contact with other people. If you are not in contact with others, then no social anxiety will arise. But it will have a secondary negative consequence. The secondary negative consequence would be that you would be isolated, that you would feel lonely at that moment. Or you might drown and dampen your emotions with loads of alcohol, and that might work. But in turn, the avoidance strategy might have its own negative secondary consequences, liver damage and all other kinds of conflict with your partner, for instance, with things that you are drinking too much. In this fourth part of the interview, I want to get an insight in whether and to what extent there are negative consequences of the avoidance behavior for Katarina. Katarina, thanks for allowing me to have such an insight in your very personal strategies that you use to be the one who has been able to
Yeah, I didn't know
avoid
they were
conflicts in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You have been very successful. Congratulations. On the other hand, we know that engaging in so much avoidance might have serious negative consequences, secondary consequences. Yeah? Let me illustrate this for you.
Yeah.
If I would feel very negative about myself, if I would have this quite negative self-perspective, if my self-worth would be very, very low, this would not be a place I want to be in, thinking about myself. So one way of avoiding to be in contact with this low feelings of self-worth would be to present myself in the most glamorous and grand ways to others, and presenting myself in a very narcissistic way would be a good way of avoiding to be in contact with my low self-worth. Can you see?
Yes.
It's a different type of avoidance,
Yeah.
but it's avoidance.
Yeah, I see.
If I would do this, and I would do this over and over again, it might have negative consequences. It could drive people away from me.
Okay.
Because this is typically not experienced as a very pleasant, interactive style, such a narcissistic style. And it might make me very lonely. Yeah? Being lonely would be a negative consequence of my avoidance style. Yeah? So I wondered, are there for you negative consequences that result from your avoidance strategies?
Yeah, the first thing that comes up to my mind is that at the moment I'm completely exhausted because I'm just working, and then when I'm coming home I'm kind of not doing what I need to do to recharge my batteries. So I guess that would be a negative consequence, that I feel kind of exhausted. I think it might also be that I'm sleeping not well, also worrying quite a lot, and I noticed as well that my concentration has become quite bad the last weeks. I don't know if it's that what you're aiming at?
Good examples. Yeah. Okay. In this fourth part of the interview, on which we elaborated some more, it became clear that indeed there are a number of secondary negative consequences to her avoidance style. First of all, by engaging in a lot of rumination, which she uses to prepare for possible mistakes the day after. By this rumination, she feels very tense in the evening. She's unable to sleep well because of this rumination, and she feels exhausted the day after. So we could say that her exhaustion and the bad night's sleep are two examples of secondary negative consequences of her avoidance style. And in the last part of the interview, we want to target one very specific type of negative consequence. This is the situation where the avoidance in itself actually brings on the situation that you want to avoid. So that there is a paradoxical effect. The thing that you want to keep out of your life appears as a result of your avoidance. Katharina, thanks for the examples, and it's becoming clear that even though your avoidance is helpful, because you have been able for quite some time to keep the the conflicts out of your life.
Yes.
You have done so, let's say, for the main part of your life, as a matter of fact. So you have been quite successful, but it comes at a cost at the moment. And the cost is that you are not sleeping well, that you're feeling exhausted, that you're unable to cope with things, and so on. There's one particular type of negative consequence that is a situation where, let's say, there is a negative feeling, a negative situation, and so on, something that you want to exclude from your life.
Yeah.
You use your avoidance strategies, but because of your avoidance, the thing that you most want to exclude actually appears as a result of that. So in your case, that would mean you're doing your best to avoid conflict, or you avoid conflict, but because you are avoiding the conflict, you get into conflict. So there would be a paradoxical effect.
Yeah.
Is this something that rings a bell? Have you encountered this at one point in your life?
Yes, I guess now, and that's why I'm here. I guess everything is kind of backfiring now. Because I told you that the other week, I don't know exactly how it went, but I didn't sleep well, and I thought that I had prepared a certain task I needed to do, but actually it appeared that it wasn't done well, and I remember that the main architect, he came to me to my drawing desk, and he was really upset, and he was really, I don't know, I kind of shut down. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was really unhappy and not satisfied with the work I did, and it kind of didn't get through to me what he actually said.
You were so anxious at the moment.
I kind of shut down, and then later on I called in sick, because I thought, okay, this is getting out of hand. I don't know how to buffer it anymore. And then I went home, and then my husband, he was really upset because he said, yeah, you cannot make that call in sick because you're kind of emotional, crying, not stable thing. And so he was really upset about that. And so I don't know. It just...
Okay, it's too much at the
everything
moment.
worked out bad. So
everything worked for quite a long time. And now...
Yeah, now
you're in
like
conflict both at
everything
home.
is backfiring.
You're in conflict at work.
Yeah, my husband, and
Okay. So it has become clear that also for Katerina, the avoidance strategies that she used are not 100% bulletproof. She's getting into conflict, and now she's looking for ways to get out of this conflict, new strategies, to make sure that this will not happen to her in the future, and that she might be able to have a full avoidance of this type of situation. In the whole of this role play, we have demonstrated how in 5 different steps we can do an assessment of avoidance. In the first part, we look at the presenting problem. In the second part, we want to identify the core themes, the core emotions, the core situations, the core physiological sensations that someone is avoiding. In the third part, we check for a list of avoidance strategies that are used to that extent. In part 4, we assess the negative consequences of these avoidance strategies. And in the last part, we want to make sure whether or not there are paradoxical effects of the avoidance. And by doing so, in this interview, we have been able to translate something that was presented as burnout, which is a descriptor, to, in essence, to negative consequences of avoidance. So burnout, in this case, was translated to avoiding conflicts, and by avoiding the conflicts, getting into situations of exhaustion. And given that avoidance is an important element in whatever type of psychopathology, in whatever type of psychological problem, it's probably a good thing that before any other type of assessment is done, a good assessment at the strategic level of avoidance has to be conducted.